Hello everybody, my name is Ensign Rickey, and welcome to the Lower Decks. In today's video, I'm going to be addressing the elephant in the room, Star Trek Discovery. So without any further ado, let's take a look.
This is a dangerous mission, and it's likely one of us will be killed. The landing party will consist of myself, Mr. Spock, Dr. McCoy, and Ensign Rickey. Ah, crap.
Star Trek Discovery is the sixth live-action production of a Star Trek series for television. The show was initially created by Bryan Fuller and Alex Kurtzman. Now that Star Trek Discovery has ended its second season, let me give you a little backstory on how we got to this point. In 2015, CBS announced that it wanted to produce another Star Trek series for television. But all the other original Star Trek writers and producers were heavily involved in their own projects at this point. Ronald D. Moore had finished off Battlestar Galactica and began to helm his new series Outlander with the help of Ira Steven Behr. Naren Shankar had begun working on The Expanse with authors Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham. Brandon Braga had his hands full helping Family Guy creator and fellow Trekkie Seth MacFarlane create The Orville. And Jerry Taylor retired from the industry shortly after Enterprise's fourth season in 2005. Bryan Fuller, however, was available and expressed interest to CBS that he would like to develop a new Star Trek series. Bryan Fuller is a writer and producer. He wrote a couple episodes of Deep Space Nine and then got heavily involved in Voyager. In Voyager's fifth season, Fuller would become a story editor, and then eventually in the seventh season, he would co-produce the show. Unfortunately, Fuller would leave Discovery after the show's first 3 episodes in Season 1. Fuller left Discovery to work on the upcoming show American Gods. He also stated that if the show got a second season, that he would come back and write for it. This never happened. Fuller is known for such works as Pushing Daisies, Wonderfalls, Heroes, Dead Like Me, and Hannibal. Even with Fuller gone, he still gets a full writing and creative credit for the show. But the reins of the show would be handed down to Akiva Goldsman and Aaron Harberts for Season 1. Ultimately, the show and the Star Trek franchise would be handed to Alex Kurtzman at the beginning of Season 2. Alex Kurtzman is also a writer and producer. He would start out producing television and then eventually get into producing film. Kurtzman's television credits include Hercules, The Legendary Journey, Xena, Warrior Princess, Alias, Fringe, Hawaii Five-0, Scorpion, and Limitless. His film career would include Mission Impossible 3, The Mummy, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and both J.J. Abrams films, Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness. The 2 later J.J. Abrams Star Trek films that Alex Kurtzman helped produce would convince Bryan Fuller to ask Alex Kurtzman to help co-create Star Trek Discovery. Right before the launch of Discovery's second season, CBS would ultimately decide to give Alex Kurtzman the keys to the Star Trek kingdom, and he would oversee all future Star Trek projects. This contract would be signed for 5 years, and this is pretty much where we stand now. I'm not going to say that I fully embrace the ideas that go into the show. I'm not going to say I fully embrace the writing that goes into the show, because it really is bad. But I can't sit here and bash this show because there's a lot of bad Trek. The reason for this is because I like to look at the bigger picture. Let me explain. I'm a musician of 30 years. I play several instruments. Music is very much a big part of my life. It's a part of my soul. It's a part of who I am. With that being said, let me use the band Metallica for example. Metallica is probably the most popular heavy metal band in existence. Through many years and many albums, Metallica is pretty much the top you can get in heavy metal. To this day, I listen to Metallica. Since 1981, Metallica has been at the forefront of metal. I love Metallica deeply, but do I agree with anything they produced after the Black Album? Hell no. I stand by and love everything that Metallica has produced from 1981's Kill 'Em All until 1991's Black Album. But anything produced after 1996 and Metallica's Load album, it doesn't feel like the same caliber music to me. It doesn't have the same impact on me that the first 5 albums that Metallica had made had on me. I look at Star Trek pretty much the same way. The only key difference is when music is put out, the band's earliest material is usually their best material. And for Star Trek, this is completely opposite. Usually the first couple seasons of Star Trek, any Star Trek usually, are pretty rough. and this is historically accurate. And this is the reason why I give Discovery the benefit of the doubt, at least for right now. It's only been 2 seasons. First season was really bad, but the second season was 1,000 times better than the first season. But again, this is not going to stop me from watching Star Trek. It's not going to stop me from buying Star Trek merchandise. It's definitely not going to stop me from discussing Star Trek. It's just what I like to do. It's a passion of mine. Now, I'm not going to lie and say that Star Trek Discovery's biggest flaws don't extend from its subpar writing and its blatant disrespect for franchise continuity, because it does. But let's push these arguments aside for a second. I'll get back to these later. But for right now, I'd like to give you some personal thoughts and comparisons on what I think would be good for the show, and focus a bit on the positive things that this show has actually done for us. 525,600 Star Treks, and there's one reason this franchise thrives. No, just kidding. Although, when that video did drop, the comments on it were hilarious. One of the comments was like, if they keep this up, the show will get canceled faster. In my opinion, Discovery's top #1 thing is its visual effects. They're stunning. They're amazing. This is the best looking Trek we've probably ever had. I mean, they're 100% top notch. I would go even to say they're probably better looking than the J.J. Abrams films. The special effects and choreography of Discovery is probably some of the best you'll see on television today. One of the better changes that Star Trek Discovery presented us was the visual rework of all the races, except for the Klingons. God, they botched that. But let's take a look. First, let's discuss Star Trek's iconic Vulcans. In Star Trek Discovery, the Vulcans get a little darker and grittier, but I do like the look. Overall, I think it's an improvement to the Vulcan race altogether. Next up, the Andorians. Now, the Andorians really didn't get much love in the original series. They were just kind of there as like a minor antagonist that Kirk can chop from time to time. In fact, until Star Trek Enterprise, the Andorians really don't get mentioned much at all. In TNG, there's 2 episodes with Andorians, and one's a hologram, and one is just someone that Picard walks by in the cafe. In Star Trek Discovery, however, I think the Andorians look great. They got a minor makeover. They do look a little darker and grittier, but I think overall it's an improvement. And now it's time for the Saurians and their famous brandy. Overall, I love the look of the Saurians in Star Trek Discovery. They did a great job. The only other Saurian we see is from the motion picture, and that's for a very short time. But for Star Trek Discovery, they took him off the closet shelf, dusted him off, gave him a new look, and I think they did great. But all in all, kudos to Discovery for the Saurians, because it's a race that a lot of people wanted to know more about, and they brought it to the light. Next up, we got the Kelpians, and this is the first time we see a Kelpian in the Star Trek franchise. And at first I was leery. I didn't really like them, but Doug Jones is a great actor, and he really turned it around for me. Aside from Ensign Mounts Pike, Saru is probably my favorite staying character on the show by far. And the thing that pisses me off about this show is the focus on Michael Burnham. We are Starfleet. Come on, she makes up one speech, and they just throw this character in there, and she acts nothing like it half the time. I mean, if anyone, and I swear to God, if anyone on this damn show is Starfleet, it's Saru. 100% Saru, not Michael F. Burnham. One thing I do have to give Star Trek Discovery credit for, though, is the casting of Orion females. Yes, someone in the casting department definitely got the memo on how to cast Orion female characters. That is the one thing that Discovery has above any series. And I'm not really going to discuss the Klingons in this video too much, other than, you know what? People still hate on them, yes, but you know what? Season 2, they are a lot better. In Season 2, the last episode, we did get what I felt was like an actual Klingon moment. You know, at least they're trying. You'll see a lot of other YouTubers bash them on the tube. They'll say, you know, blah, 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 CBS is not listening. In this case, you know what? CBS did listen. Then they placed these, what I like to call Cand-Aids, or canon Band-Aids. But the only problem with Discovery is that Discovery is, the whole second season is just one big Cand-Aid. Some of the other things in Discovery that I liked that they did was the common sense futuristic improvements. The sonic toothbrushes, we finally get to see what sonic toothbrushes look like and how people brush their teeth in the future. The hollow mirrors, you know, I like the hollow mirrors. It makes sense, you know. A lot of people use them in the future better than, actual mirror in their bathroom when you can just pop it in front of your face, I guess. But I did like the hollow mirrors. The smart hall lighting. When people walk down the hall, the lights turn on in front of them and off behind them. That is also a very cool other improvement that Discovery did bring to the table. Other things include the teleportation sequences. The teleportation sequences in Discovery are far beyond any other Trek, in my opinion. You can't tell me that TOS, TNG, DS9, Enterprise, any of them, Voyager, had better sequences than Discovery. Hands down, the visuals, comes down to the visuals in Discovery. They are the best visual Trek we have at the moment and probably ever had. Can't wait for the new Picard series to shed some light on the later 24th century and see what the technology and stuff like that after the Dominion War is. But yeah. And another thing that I probably like about Discovery off the top of my head are the ships. I'm not much of a ship guy personally. I like the characters, I like the story. I usually leave the shippy stuff to sites like Trek Yards, and if you haven't checked out Trek Yards, please do. They are an amazing resource if you are into ships of any sci-fi franchise, really. Do check them out. But I do like overall how the ships look in Discovery. They do look great. But that's what you expect with a $10 million budget, right? But other than that, I could say Discovery is definitely what I wanted out of Trek in a visual sense. Other than the Klingons, Star Trek Discovery gets the prize visually. You can't really compare it to any other Star Trek. It definitely even is a step up over the JJ films. But the one thing I do, and I have to point this out, and I really hate this, is the director who directs the episodes with those spinning dialogue scenes. It drives me insane. I just don't know why, but it spins from one character to another character to another, and it just keeps like going in a circle, and I'm just not a fan of those type of dialogue scenes. The best analogy I can come up with Star Trek Discovery was it's like giving an 8-year-old $10 million and telling them to invest financially in their future. I don't think the canon mistakes were blatantly done, as people claim, as much as overlooked. CBS just gave the keys of the kingdom to the wrong people. But Alex Kurtzman was just the wrong person. Brian Fuller and Alex Kurtzman started this show together. Alex Kurtzman's only previous Trek experience was in the JJ films. So J.J. Abrams, he wrote 2 feature films for Star Trek, and that is nothing like writing an episode of Star Trek. Brian Fuller, on the other hand, was a writer for Star Trek. He came in on Voyager and, in DS9, and he actually does know how to write a Trek episode. But the only problem was he left within the first 3 episodes of Star Trek Discovery. So the one person that did have the knowledge to write Trek went out the door as soon as Discovery started. Right then and there, I was worried. But to be honest, Fuller leaving was only part of the problem. The Star Trek Discovery went through a lot of firing, hiring, restaffing, and it shows. There's a lot of continuity errors, a lot of plot holes so deep sometimes that they just forgot. What happens behind the scenes has a very huge impact what happens from what you see on the screen. Some people don't realize that, and for the people who support the show, more power to you. If it's your Star Trek and you love this show, I have no problem with that. I wanted to love it. From when I heard it was coming out, that we were getting a new Star Trek, I was happy. And I was happy until about the Mirror Universe episodes. When I started going to the universe, and then the episodes started, falling apart, and the story started falling apart, that's when Discovery really lost me. But you know what? I still watch it because of Star Trek, and I will, and I hope that season 3 is a lot better. I think it will be, because they're finally out of this timeline. A timeline I don't think they should have been in the first place. But the older you get, the more you realize that life works in circles. Star Trek Discovery was not the only series plagued with all the issues it had. TNG worked out very much the same way, and until later end of season 2 in TNG, things were a mess, just as much as they were in Star Trek Discovery. Now, the only thing that TNG has working for it in its favor is that it was creating the continuity that Star Trek, Discovery borrowed from. And season 2 of Star Trek Discovery is 1,000 times better than season 1. As far as, putting it against the other shows, this season, The Orville is a clear winner. They have people who know how to write sci-fi episodes, and you can clearly see that on the screen. Every Orville episode plays out perfectly like it was a Star Trek episode. And the reason why is because, Brandon Braga and a lot of former people that worked on Trek are now at the Orville. CBS just has to understand that Star Trek is a very nuanced show. Fans have picked apart every smallest detail that has ever been thrown on screen. Everybody knows the facts, the methods behind it, the technology, the people. If this is all established, and if you can't work with what's established already, you shouldn't write Trek at all. There's a reason why Star Trek is so successful. There's a certain method in writing it. Gene's box is part of that method. The Star Trek Discovery writers just don't know how to write sci-fi or sci-fi eps. Alex Kurtzman, for that matter. I mean, writing a J.J. Abrams Star Trek film is completely different than writing an episode of Star Trek. I do hope they get on the ball with Michelle Paradise. But then again, here it comes down to the comparisons between Star Trek Discovery and TNG. Late in season 2, things turn around for TNG. Rick Berman got Michael Piller aboard. Michael Piller is the unsung hero of Berman's Star Trek. He changed things around. Eventually, they also got Jerry Taylor. And by the end of season 2 and season 3, there was a strike at the time, but the show got its footing and things turn around for the better. And Star Trek, Discovery, we're seeing the same thing now with Michelle Paradise taking over at the end of the second, and so Kurtzman could go and work on other projects. But the issue is, and the big question is Michelle Paradise going to be the Michael Piller that this show really needs? In addition to my thoughts for Season 2 in Star Trek Discovery, a few gems do stick out. Ensign Mount's Pike, 100%. It was amazing. He blew me away. He really did. He easily became my favorite part of the show. Sad that he's leaving. Also, Ethan Peck's Spock. I had kind of mixed feelings when they recasted Spock, and they got the beard going on, and they did the first pictures. But you know what? I think, other than the whining with Michael Burnham at the end, Spock was great. He did a really, really good job. And I hope that these two do get their show with Rebecca Romaine as number 1. I think it would be interesting. And to be honest, I would watch 5 to 7 seasons of a Pike show before I would probably watch 5 to 7 seasons of Discovery. And that's, in my opinion, how good a job Ensign Mount did with Pike. But Star Trek Discovery should be seriously credited for Captain Pike. If anything, Discovery shed light on a legendary character in the Star Trek universe. We've all heard about Pike. His adventures, we see him in TOS for a couple episodes, for and after the machine. But there was really not much of him said after that. Star Trek Discovery really, really opened the doors on it. And to be honest, that was the best part of the season. But in retrospect, I'm glad that they took Star Trek Discovery out of this timeline. They need their own show. They need it to shine. It's time to stop, plucking from the Star Trek canon. You guys are established now. So I hope that, in the future, we get to see light of some of the stories that we've seen in the short trek, such as Craft. I'm pretty sure that he's now going to come to the show. Maybe the creation of Zora, the AI from Craft, in the short trek Calypso. Use the sphere data to evolve into Zora. Other than that, this is the best decision the producers could have ever made for this show. Other thoughts about Section 31? Ash is in charge now. They have established that. I hope that he takes it underground and Section 31 becomes something like, what we finally see in the 2370s in DS9. You know what? I don't care what they do with Section 31 as long as they don't have them rolling into battle like the A-Team with a fully modified war wagon with 50mm cannons attached and AK-47s busting through some wall, because that's pretty much what, Discovery did to Section 31 right off the bat for a secretive and clandestine organization. But yeah, I hope Ash does take it back underground. I think he will, and they can patch things up that way. They'll have to figure out some way to get Michelle Yeoh back from the future. Obviously, she went with Discovery to the 31st century. I'm assuming that maybe something like the Guardian of Forever could take her back, and then she can rejoin Section 31. But I do hope that they do some good writing for that show. I want it to be more like a political thriller, or maybe an NCIS type of Star Trek, them going to foreign governments and giving us a little more backstory, so the other shows don't have to. But if you look at all the other Trek shows as a whole, the one show that opened up all the canon for us, at least the one that opened up the most canon for us, was Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And I hope that this new Section 31 show is kind of on the same political level that Deep Space Nine was. Deep Space Nine gave us a lot. They gave us the views of other races and what they thought of the Federation. They gave us the backstory and a lot of these other races and civilizations that we see. And this was good, because then it allowed us to have, Picard out there on Enterprise discovering new civilizations and planets, without, having to explain what's going on at home. There should always be a home-based show, in my opinion, and I hope that this new Section 31 show does the trick. Other than that, I would like to know your thoughts. Now that Star Trek Discovery is an intergalactic, interdimensional, time-hopping Voyager, and Ash is going underground with Section 31, and then all the other crazy stuff going on in the Trek universe with the Picard show and this new Lower Decks animated series that's coming out, I'd like to know everybody's thoughts. I pretty much discussed all that I wanted to discuss in this video about Star Trek Discovery. I hope nothing but the best for the show. I hope that in Season 3 it could be able finally to write its own continuity, make its own canon, without heavily relying on what was before. I hope to see a whole new show, to be honest with you. Hopefully it becomes more of an ensemble show, more than a hero show. But, you can only pray. And as far as where the keys of the kingdom of the Star Trek universe are right now, can't say they're in the best hands. But, you can never tell. And now it's up to Michelle Paradise to take this show to new levels and new heights. I hope she does a well job. The reason why is because Star Trek is my favorite sci-fi franchise. And, of course, for it being my favorite, I would want it to be on top. And that was the original plan with Star Trek Discovery, but unfortunately it fell through. But out of this season, the top 3 sci-fi's on right now, and the top 3 in my opinion are The Orville, Star Trek Discovery, and The Expanse, which is coming out later on this in fall, I believe. I'd have to say Star Trek Discovery's at the bottom. Orville is at the top right now until Season 4 drops of The Expanse, which I'm very, very much looking forward to. But until then, let me know your thoughts. I want to see what everybody thinks about this crazy situation. Like I said, I didn't want to be abrasive to Star Trek Discovery, and I still don't want to be abrasive, at least as much as other people have been. But at the same time, I do want it to be a good show because it is Star Trek and it's something that I love very much. As far as a sci-fi show, it should be on top. But thanks for hanging out with me. Like I said, my name is Ensign Rickey and this is The Lower Decks. I'll be bringing you another couple of videos here soon. Hopefully you like this new format. I'm just still trying to get used to it and work the kinks out. But until then, if you like what you see, please don't forget to subscribe. If you want to support my channel or support me in what I do, please by all means donate at the links below. Also in the links below I put a lot of other content creators that I listen to and I respect and support. And if you have any questions, you can always leave them in the comments below. But I do implore you to go and check out the content creators, a couple podcasts too, all really great people of the community, all great resources. places for nerds like us to hang out. Definitely check out some of these guys below. They're very, very good. Other than that, that was my video, and I hope you enjoyed the show.